Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a non-spoiler book review and then a little bit at the end of a spoilery chat for A Curse So Dark and Lonely. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with a little bit of a twist. It's a dual perspective story that follows our two main characters, one being the cursed prince and then the other being a girl named Harper from our own world. The way the curse works is that they have this perpetual season where it will restart whenever our prince, whose name is Ren, if he does not succeed in this 3-month time period, having a girl fall in love with him, he will turn into this rage monster that goes around and kills a bunch of people. He has killed people in the past, he's killed people close to him in the past because he cannot control this monster. Once this happens, he goes back to his human form and the season starts over. And the way to break this curse is if they can make a girl fall in love with him within the season. Obviously, they have not been successful thus far, which is why he has his guard named Gray, goes into this world. He's permitted to go into our world once a season to randomly pluck a girl out of our world and hope that he's chosen well and that this girl will fall in love with the prince. The great thing about this being a portal fantasy, so a character is from our world going into a fantastical one, is that it sets up world building really well. One of the most difficult things I find in fantasy with world building is making it feel organic, having it have a good balance. And in this case, our main character is truly clueless as to what the heck is going on, and she's very believably clueless. She wants to go home. She has people she cares about. It makes you care about her. It makes you feel like so much of what is occurring is how you probably would react to this, because when she gets to this new world, she is filled with questions, but she also wants to get the heck out of there. She can't just up and leave. Doesn't work like that, and they can't take her back until this season is over. But this is actually, even though the stakes are already high because people die whenever he turns into a monster, the stakes are even higher because this time, this is the last season. If he does not succeed in having Harper fall in love with him, then he's going to forever stay as a beast. And so the circumstances definitely are really high. He is pretty much hopeless, doesn't feel like there's a chance. And Harper is constantly thinking, I just want to go home. This is crazy. I'm not going to fall in love with this guy. And it definitely sets up for there being a lot of tension, for there being incredibly dire circumstances. And even though we're talking about these two guys, this prince and his guard, kidnapping girls in the hopes that they'll fall in love with the prince, even though we're talking about something so dark, you understand the motivations for these characters. And as a result, I think it presents a fair amount of gray morality. These characters have so many difficult choices that they have to face. And you see a lot of times them, what feels like being selfish, but then you realize their actions are actually selfless, that they're trying to do things for the betterment of the kingdom, for other people. There's a lot of character growth that's explored throughout the story. I do want to mention something that I've seen be considered a negative thing about the story, why I personally didn't find it to be a negative, but I think it could be really helpful for you to know, and that's the whole trope of she's not like other girls. So that trope, while I understand whether you're referring to girls or guys, I can understand why that trope is a frustrating one, because it's almost implying like, well, most girls suck, or like most boys are terrible, but this one's better. And I understand how that can be aggravating to some people. It definitely feels prevalent in this story. We definitely find when we're in Ren's perspective that he does think like, this one's not like the others, and his guard's like, she's different than the other ones. You definitely get a fair amount of that. But for me, it made sense to the story because they are literally hoping that this girl is not like the other girls that have come before. And it's not that they want her to be different because every other female has been terrible and their women are just the worst. It's not like that. It's that they need her to be different. They're hoping she will be different purely because they need this curse broken. One of the things that often gets praised for this story is the disability representation. We have a character with cerebral palsy, and there are people that have this that have talked about how the representation they feel was really well done. And as somebody who doesn't have that, I found for myself when reading it, what I really liked is that Harper felt like a person. Right away, I was not sitting here feeling like she was just a token character. I legitimately felt for her in the things that make her a person, her wanting to go home to her family. She has some serious things going on in her life that she cares so passionately about, it made me, even if I didn't have the same situations in my own life, it made me connect to her because I know how strongly I feel toward the things that are important to me. I cared about her in those ways, but she felt like her own person. She had her own personality, and having cerebral palsy was a part of who she was, but it wasn't all she was, which was really cool to see. I did find that this story picks up immediately. It starts right away. You're kind of, I wouldn't even say thrown into it, because I always find when people say they're thrown into something, it almost feels disorienting at first. I just feel like she did not waste her time, this author. She put you exactly where the story was interesting to start with. And then if there is a sense of being disoriented, it's more of because Harper is taken to this other place and doesn't know what's going on. But you kind of are clued in because you have the other perspective of a character from this fantasy world. So I found it picked up right away. It was engaging right away. And the writing style, both perspectives are first person. For some people, that can be frustrating because you would think first person point of view would be more intimate and you would know the character more because you're in their head. But sometimes they have to describe everything so much to you, what's happening, what they're doing, that you just kind of get that and you don't get really who they are. But in this case, I really felt like the first person narration, while very straightforward, I wouldn't say it was flowery in the slightest. I wouldn't say it was really beautiful writing. It was very direct, and it served its purpose in showing us Harper and showing us Ren. From there on, I always felt like this book was continuously moving forward. I always felt like if something was transpiring, it was relevant to the plot, it was relevant to their goals, their motivations, or it was a character development moment. Sometimes it was a combination of a bunch of those things. And we do see the characters grow, but we have had the two male characters stuck in this curse for a long time. So it was really cool to see that while our characters are struggling, they still find hope, and that Harper, as somebody who is a third party, has nothing in this at all. There's no reason why she should care what's going on. She sees people as people, and she realizes it doesn't matter if this is a different place. I'm stuck here. I'm going to try to make this place better while I'm here. And she's not only there for the people of this kingdom, but she's there for these two individuals, recognizing, hey, I'm probably not going to fall in love with you, but I can at least try to help and do what I can. It was actually really inspiring, and I found her personality to be so likable, even if it's so different. I just really loved that she's not necessarily a character I feel like is somebody you can put yourself in and decide, oh, that's me, because some stories we do have characters that are almost little empty shells for you to insert yourself in and pretend this is happening to you. She feels like her own person, and that person felt different from me, but I cared about her and I liked her a lot, and the support that she provides other people I really liked. I personally loved pretty much everything about this book. I thought it was such a good story. I thought the pacing was great. I thought the character development, pretty much everything. I really loved this book. I can see where the trope I mentioned before would maybe be off-putting to some people. And I think that the tone is so straightforward and the writing is so straightforward in that way that it can be seen as maybe too simplistic for you if you prefer a writing style that's almost challenging for you. This one really isn't. It flows, it's easy to get through, but the story and the characters I find to be what this is about. It's not really about this poetic, beautiful writing, but some people want that and they feel like you can have both, and this book doesn't really have that in my opinion, but I didn't mind because I loved the story and I loved the characters. That said, I do want to get into spoilers now. I actually have already read the sequel and I know what's going to happen, but in the spoilers, I'm not going to be spoiling what happens in the second book. I'm only going to be talking about events in this one. If you don't want to be spoiled at all, don't keep watching. There's one specific thing that I want to, it's the only thing that I was kind of confused by in this book and was like, what? And that would be when Harper, for those that haven't read this in a while, at one point the enchantress Lilith cuts Harper's cheek. And when that happened, so Harper kind of like passes out. She had just seen Lilith torturing Ren, and then Gray's having to like hold her back, and she's like, no, stop, and she throws a dagger at Lilith and stuff. So that all happens, and then Lilith comes and takes and like cuts her cheek, and then Harper passes out, and I was like, was that poisoned? And then I don't think it was. I think that she legitimately just got cut on her face. And I'm not saying that wouldn't be a bummer because now you got the scar on your face. I get it, that sucks. But the way that even Ren was thinking about it, because he's sitting by her bedside and he's like, oh, this will break her for sure. She's definitely going to leave now. She's going to leave now. And she saw Lilith do things to me, but then she cut her cheek. And the whole cutting of her cheek was made out to be like this really big deal. And I'm like, what? Is there more to this? And there wasn't. She just got cut in the cheek. But I might not have flipped out. I wouldn't say I'm flipping out. I probably wouldn't have kind of found this amusing if later in the book, the whole her getting shot with arrows wasn't kind of like, that didn't have as big of a reaction. And so she gets shot with arrows when she's trying to, at the end, he's a monster now, all this stuff is going down, and they're like shooting her with the arrows, and they're like, we can find lots of places where it won't kill her, but it'll be painful, so she's gonna be harmed. And when that was happening, I'm like, is she legit getting shot with arrows right now? Because the fact that we spent so much time on her face getting cut, I was thinking, is she not getting shot by arrows? Because I don't feel like this is as big of a deal. But I understood the pacing toward the end was very fast. There's so much stuff going down. And we don't need to dwell on how painful it is to be shot by arrows. But I mean, maybe a little bit more, a tiny bit, because the cut thing was on her cheek was such a big deal. That was it. That's like the only thing I have to say that's like remotely negative for me. And I wouldn't even say it was negative. It just was more funny to me, and I suppose that it pulled me out of the story a little bit. But gosh darn it, I like this book a lot. I will say, and I promised I wouldn't give away spoilers for the sequel, and I won't. But toward the end of the book, when you see Gray, he's come back, and he's like, oh, I can't come back to them now because me being alive, I'm the true heir, and I can't have them know, and everything. And I'm like, really? Like at all? You can't let them know? I do want to ask all of you, and this is obviously a question that has spoilers, so if you answer this in the comments, just make sure you write spoilers and whatever so that other people aren't spoiled. But I've seen a lot of people talk about this book as if it has a really strong love triangle. And while I can see there being this kind of attraction between Gray and Harper, I never felt like it was a love triangle in the slightest. I felt like while Gray and her maybe had a connection, and Ren even says at one point toward the end, hey, I'm gonna die, so I saw something maybe between you guys, and maybe you guys can find comfort in each other or whatever. And there's that moment, but that was more of just Ren accepting like, oh, I'm gonna be dead, and at least this way, these two people I care about can maybe find happiness with each other. I didn't really read it as, well, you only stepped aside because of the curse, and so I didn't really see it that way. I just never really thought that Gray was literally a love interest in this story that she had to choose between. I definitely felt like there was, he admired her, and I think she admired him, and I think they cared about each other, and there was a friendship, and maybe there was some attraction, but it did not, to me, feel like she was falling in love with Gray. I think the fandom likes Gray more than Harper likes Gray, but maybe that's just me. You can tell me if you felt differently. Anyway, that is it. This was the first book I read in 2020, and I'm so glad it was the first one because it set up 2020 really well for me. I really loved this book. I have lots of things to say about the second one, so I will be filming a review and chat for that very soon. Let me know your thoughts on this book. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.